Hi everyone, this is a recap of what we did in class today. For the purpose of this video, I'm using the period 6 classroom, but it will be the same no matter what class period you are in. So at the bottom of cycle 10, you should find a material called Essay, What to Do Now. So there is a set of Google Slides that I went over, and then there is a Google Doc called Simplified Essay Steps that you may or may not need to use. I will explain that in a minute. So the first thing that I did was to go over the slides, which describe what I did with the work that you turned in over the break and what your next steps should be. So over break, I read everything that you turned in. And for the essay, that is the brainstorming graphic organizer, the thesis statement document, and your introduction paragraph on no red ink. A couple of things to know, problems that I saw across all classes. Firstly, please do not choose random quotes from the internet for your brainstorming graphic organizer. The quotes that you use need to be from the text that we read in class, and there is a link to a document with all of those texts in it attached to the graphic organizer. It's within the graphic organizer. So make sure you're using the text we have read together. Please do not use 3 quotes from the same text. You need to demonstrate your understanding of 3 different texts. So even if you really like Langston Hughes, you cannot use one poem for the entire essay and just pick 3 quotes from it. You need to show me that you can use different texts. Please do not copy things directly from the internet. It's very easy for me to tell what you have copied, and it will earn you a 0. Please also do not copy from someone else's paper, even if they are in another class. If you turn in work that is exactly the same as someone else's, both of you will get 0s and have to do it over again. So what should you do now? Well, it depends on where you are in the process of writing your essay. So I made these flowcharts. There are 2 options. The first one is over here in the green, and that is if you turned in the 3 pieces of the essay that were due before break, the brainstorming, the thesis, and the introduction. If you have done those things, then your next step is to read the comments that I left on those documents. If you are not sure how to look for my comments or where they would be, I made a tutorial. You can click here on this link and it will take you to the YouTube video of me showing you how to find my comments within Google Docs and no red ink. Once you've reviewed the comments, you need to ask me any questions that you might have. Once you get your questions answered, you're going to revise your work based on the suggestions that I made. So if I left a comment telling you that you needed to change your thesis statement, now is the time that you would do that. Make sure that if you're making changes in your thesis, that they are also made in your introduction on no red ink, where your thesis also appears. The other side of this graphic organizer here is for people who have either not started the essay yet, or are stuck somewhere, or feeling confused. So I made a document that's linked here, and will also be posted in Classroom, that combines all 3 steps, the brainstorming, the thesis, and the introduction, into one Google Doc. I'm going to go over that in a minute, but if you decide you want to do that doc and you're still not sure what to do with it, there are 3 separate screencasts here for each step that you can watch of me explaining them in more detail. You need to watch those, look at the doc, ask me any questions that you have, and then make an attempt to do the work and turn it in so that I can make suggestions. I am not expecting your first draft to be perfect. I just want you to make an effort to put something on paper so that I have something to comment on. Okay, so I'm going to switch over now and show you the document that you can work in if you are starting from scratch. That is this other piece that is attached to the material What to Do Now. It's called Simplified Essay Steps. So when you open this up, it will be read-only. You will have to make a copy of it in order to have one that you can write your answers into. And once you do that, you can either attach it to another assignment and turn it in, or you can just share it with me so that I can view it. I know I tell you not to do that in most cases, but in this case, that might actually be the easiest way. Okay, so step one is finding your quotes. This is the brainstorming graphic organizer portion. So there are 4 steps here. You need to open up this hyperdoc that has all of the text that we've read so far. Within those texts, you need to choose 3 different texts that you feel comfortable with, that you think you can talk about in your essay. Make sure to copy and paste the title and author of each one of them into these boxes here under this first column. You're going to need title and author when you introduce them in your essay. You're going to choose one quote from each of those 3 texts that you agree with. So a quote that you think the author is saying something that is true, something that you agree with. You're going to copy and paste those quotes into the second column. And then in this third column, in the color-coded boxes, you're using your own words to explain how the quote defines an American. They are color-coded for a reason. So these 3 different qualities of Americans are what you're going to end up putting into your thesis statement. So once you have this graphic organizer filled out, the only thing that you need to do to create your thesis statement is to copy down the qualities that you came up with in your explanation into this sentence frame here. So if you look at the example, right, I'm saying this text defines Americans as resilient. So resilient is the quality of an American I'm talking about here. That word would be what would be copied down into my thesis statement. Then you would copy down whatever word or phrase you came up with for the orange one into the orange box down here. And whatever word or phrase is in the yellow box into this yellow box. And you should end up with a sentence that reads as a list of the 3 things that you are using, the qualities you're using to define an American. So for the sake of this example, it is an American is resilient, helpful, and proud. And you can see that those colors match up with the 3 boxes that match up with these 3 boxes. So your thesis statement is not actually any extra work. It is just taking what you came up with in your graphic organizer and putting it into a sentence frame. So once you've done that, you have a thesis statement. You only have to put it in one or the other, whichever one works for what you are saying. If you're not sure, please ask me and I will help you figure it out. The last step is writing your introduction paragraph, and this is the one where you're going to have to come up with a lot of this yourself. I know that this is hard, but I just want you to try it, and I will comment on whatever you give me and help you figure out what else you can do to make it better. There are only 3 steps in an intro. It is to write a hook, a bridge, and then copy and paste your thesis statement. The purpose here for a hook is to get your reader interested in what you have to say. So things that you can consider using are famous quotes. This would be where you could Google any kind of quote about America that you might want to use. You could make a shocking statement. The one here in the example is giving like a hypothetical situation. Whatever you think you can do to convince somebody to read your paper. The bridge, the next part, is background information that connects your hook to your thesis. So, what someone would need to know to understand where your essay is going. So, in the case of our example, right, we have this hypothetical situation. Imagine this situation. And then the writer goes on to explain what that situation might be like and to explain how that relates to being an American. Then finally, at the end, you have your thesis, which you have already written in step 2. So all you need to do is copy and paste your thesis statement from step 2 into the thesis box in step 3. Once you put these 3 things together, the hook, the bridge, and the thesis, it becomes a full introduction paragraph. That intro you will end up putting on no red ink in the guided drafts, which is already linked to Classroom. I'll show you where that is. Down here under Essay, Drafting, and Introduction on No Red Ink, you will be able to log in and then copy and paste your introduction paragraph. So when you are done with this entire document, you may share it with me so that I can read over it, tell you if there's anything I think you need to do, and then you are good to go when we get to body paragraphs.